Silk Road's 1st Street century BC 5th century AD, and 13th-14th centuries AD. People have been trading goods for almost as long as they've been around. But as of the 1st century BC, a remarkable phenomenon occurred. For the first time in history, luxury products from China started to appear on the other edge of the Eurasian continent, in Rome. They got there after being hauled for thousands of miles along the Silk Road. Trade had stopped being a local or regional affair and started to become global. That is not to say globalization had started in earnest. Silk was mostly a luxury good, and so were the spices that were added to the intercontinental trade between Asia and Europe. As a percentage of the total economy, the value of these exports was tiny, and many middlemen were involved to get the goods to their destination. But global trade links were established, and for those involved, it was a gold mine. From purchase price to final sales price, the multiple went in the dozens. The Silk Road could prosper in part because two great empires dominated much of the route. If trade was interrupted, it was most often because of blockades by local enemies of Rome or China. If the Silk Road eventually closed, as it did after several centuries, the fall of the empires had everything to do with it. And when it reopened in Marco Polo's late medieval time, it was because the rise of a new hegemonic empire, the Mongols. It is a pattern we'll see throughout the history of trade. It thrives when nations protect it, it falls when they don't. Spice routes 7th-15th centuries. The next chapter in trade happened thanks to Islamic merchants. As the new religion spread in all directions from its Arabian heartland in the 7th century, so did trade. The founder of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, was famously a merchant, as was his wife Khadijah. Trade was thus in the DNA of the new religion and its followers, and that showed. By the early 9th century, Muslim traders already dominated Mediterranean and Indian Ocean trade. Afterwards, they could be found as far east as Indonesia, which over time became a Muslim-majority country, and as far west as Moorish Spain. The main focus of Islamic trade in those Middle Ages were spices. Unlike silk, spices were traded mainly by sea since ancient times. But by the medieval era, they had become the true focus of international trade. Chief among them were the cloves, nutmeg and mace from the fabled Spice Islands, the Maluku Islands in Indonesia. They were extremely expensive and in high demand, also in Europe. But as with silk, they remained a luxury product, and trade remained relatively low volume. Globalization still didn't take off, but the original Belt Sea Route and Road Silk Road of trade between East and West did now exist.